Okay, thank you, Kareem. So today's webcast deals with Civil 3D's Project Explorer. This is me, Jeff Morris. I'm a learning content developer with Ascent, the Center for Technical Knowledge. The Project Explorer is an entitlement to the Autodesk 2022 AEC collections, and it runs inside of Civil 3D 2022. If you do not have the Autodesk 2022 AEC collections, you may not have access to the Project Explorer. What we'll be looking at today is the interface of the Project Explorer. We will have a mission of what to use the Project Explorer for to solve some issues. We'll be looking at how to create tables and reports. And then we will launch into a software demonstration. The Project Explorer's interface window is modeless. That means that it can remain open while you continue to work in Civil 3D. If you have multiple screens, it is ideal to dock your Project Explorer over on one screen and keep your Civil 3D interface on another screen and work in both simultaneously. The Project Explorer interface is divided into 4 categories. At the top is the object category. Down below that is the view pane, where you can view the object that you are currently looking at through panning and zooming. Then we have the object tabular pane and the sub-object tabular pane. Depending on which object category tab you are in, there may or may not be a view pane. And also the status bar below the view pane and the bar above the view pane will vary depending on your object category tab you are in. To launch the Project Explorer, you click on the Project Explorer icon in the Explore tab of the Home ribbon. So our mission is to correct some issues with the storm sewer within the Ascent dataset that we use within our Civil 3D fundamental courses, as well as the survey and the grading courses. There are 2 issues with it. One issue is that the outfall going into the pond is actually below the final surface, so that's not ideal. And the other one is, as shown in this screen grab, we want to change the flow of the storm sewers so they both flow to the knuckle of Ascent Place. And we will look at how we could use Project Explorer to solve both of these issues. Finally, for the reports, we will look at how to use object sets to create reports and use these reports to create tables within Civil 3D, or we can also produce CSV files or documents. So let's launch into the software. Okay, so here we are in Civil 3D 2022. And those of you that may have taken Civil 3D courses from Ascent before may recognize this data set. We use it for many of our fundamental courses. I'm going to restore the view start to zoom in to where we want to work. And I'm going to launch the Project Explorer, which is on the Home tab in the Explore panel, Project Explorer. Now it takes a little bit to launch it. As I mentioned earlier, if you have multiple screens, it's ideal to have your Project Explorer off to one screen. For this webcast, we have to work all on one screen. So this is the Project Explorer, and at the top you see the various tabs for the objects, and you'll see that in the brackets is how many entities are within that. So for example, we have 54 alignments, we have the assemblies, corridors, point groups, surfaces, feature lines, parcels, pipe networks, pressure networks, sample line groups, AutoCAD blocks, and this thing for object sets that's for report and tables. We have our view pane where we can zoom in or out. I can pan around. And on the status bar, there's a variety of buttons that I can show or hide a variety of information. So I'm hiding the text, I hid the grid, and I can turn on the text, and I can turn on the grid. As I go from tab to tab, these buttons down here may change, as well as at the top, my menu up here changes. We have our object pane and our sub-object pane, and our sub-object pane can have multiple tabs within it. If I click on the pipe networks, we have in our sub-object pane, we have structures, pipes, and pipe runs. There's a variety of keyboard shortcuts that we can do. So for example, if I highlight a particular structure and I use the Z or the Z key on my keyboard, it zooms to that structure in Civil 3D model space. Now it zooms in so far so I can't actually see the structure, so I zoom out and there you see the structure. If I click on another structure, I can hit P for pan, and then it pans over at the same zoom level to that particular structure. I can also use the standard Windows, the Control key, selecting individual parts, or the Shift key, selecting one, holding the Shift key down, and selecting another, and all of them get selected in between. And with these selected, if I go to zoom, it will zoom to those three structures, to encompass these three structures. Going back to my alignment, anything that is in purple, we can modify. So if I double click on the description for ascent place, I can enter a description, ascent place alignment. So I can actually edit the Civil 3D objects as well. Down below so for the alignments in our sub-object pane, we can customize the layout. So I click on Layout, and I pick which tab I want to change the layout, Alignment, Profile, Calculated Stations, and I can check on or off which columns I want to see. Since there are so many columns, it might be easier to uncheck them all. So I click on this Clear All, and then go through and just check one by one which columns I want to see. Notice that some of them are in purple, which means I can edit that. So the heading for stations, I can double click on that and change that to chain H, for example. And I can also rearrange. I can click on northing and use my up arrow. So now northing comes in front of easting. And let's say that that is all I want to see. I can also change my alignment, line, curve, and spiral intervals. So now I have my point, my chainage, my northing, my easting, and my elevation. I didn't change the intervals, but if I did, they would be shown up down here. Okay, now let's look at trying to solve the issues that I was explaining earlier with our storm sewers. I click over to the pipe networks, which is the first tab. The second tab is pressure networks. You have to wait for the tooltips because the icons are very similar. So on my pipe networks, we have in our subpane, we only have one network, the storm sewer. And in our subpane, we have 8 structures, 11 pipe runs, and 7 pipes. In my view pane, I can actually compare it to a particular surface. In this case, we want to compare it to our FG surface, which is our finished ground. On my pipes pane, P1 is, this row is currently selected, and it is in yellow in my view pane. And if I move, I can move up and down with my up and down arrow on the keyboard, and each pipe gets turns yellow in my view pane. Pipe 5, 6, and 7 are perpendicular to my view pane. That's why you can't see them. And you'll also notice that some of these pipes are orange, which means that there's an alert there that some of the rules have been broken, and the tooltip tells you which rules have been broken. So if I highlight pipe 5 and I type Z or Z, it zooms to that particular pipe. And also, with this selected, I hold the control key. Every time I press the control key, it highlights the pipe. And you notice that pipe 5, the start structure is structure 6, and the end structure is structure 7. On our structure tab, notice that structure 6 is actually the flared end section, and that the surface elevation is roughly 50, whereas the rim elevation is 45. So obviously that has to move up to accommodate the surface elevation. So to do that, we go back to the pipes tab for pipe 6, and I double click on the start elevation. That is the one we want to change. This opens up the edit pipe and slope elevation window, and notice that I can either hold the start elevation or the end elevation. I'm going to hold the end elevation, and that allows me to enter a new start elevation, which we will at 47.5. I hit enter. Now I want to change the end elevation of the pipe, so I'm going to go and hold the start elevation, and now I can change the end elevation to 49.5. And you notice that the slope is negative 2.5%, which is acceptable. So I click OK. Now it takes a while for Civil 3D to catch up with these changes. And let's see if we can actually see what's going on. Remember, these pipes and structures are perpendicular to my view. So I'm going to change my start structure for the pipe run to ST6 and my end structure to ST8. My current pipe, which is pipe 6, we need to adjust the start elevation accordingly because we're flowing uphill, but that is a mission for another day. Okay, now let's look at the other issue that we were having. This deals with structures 8 to 11. So I'm going to change my end structure to structure 11 and my start structure to structure 8. And sorry that this is cut off on my single screen. But here we see that it goes from the, let's select all of them, structures 8 to 11. And we'll zoom to that. So structure 11 is in the cul-de-sac. Structure 10 and structure 9 are in the knuckle, and structure 8 goes down to Jeffries Ranch Road. And you see how it keeps flowing downhill until it comes to a very deep structure within Jeffries Ranch Road. We want to change it so that the flow actually goes from Jeffries Ranch Road to the knuckle, so from structure 8 to structure 10, and from there we'll go to the pond. So we don't need to change the this pipe going from up to the cul-de-sac. So I can change my display pipes simply to 8 to 10, and we want to change this complete flow. So rather than double clicking like I did earlier, I'm going to click on my edit pipe run. And here, as before, I can hold my start elevation or the end elevation. I want to hold my end elevation. I want to change the slope as it goes into Jeffries Ranch Road to +2. Click OK. Takes a while for everything to update. And let's just modify this once again, looking from structure 8 to structure 11. And here we have it. Okay, so we've adjusted the pipe runs. There's still some work to be done with the various structures, but we're a long way there. Okay, now let's look at some of these other tabs. We have our pressure pipe network for water, where we have pressure pipes and fittings, appurtenances, and pipe runs. We have the sample lines. We only have one sample line collection for Jeffries Ranch Road. Remember what we did earlier with the up and down arrows? It's quite handy for our sample lines, so I can run up and down the Jeffries Ranch Road at the sample lines. Also notice that my compared to surface is the FG, so I can quickly see what's happening within Jeffries Ranch Road. For my AutoCAD blocks, these are both XREFs and blocks. And even though there's not a preview screen here, I can select on a particular object and Z for zoom to. And the control key will actually highlight it to show me what this particular XREF is. If I go down to my ST light, let's zoom to that. And again, control will select it for me. Okay. So it takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you start figuring out the various tricks, especially these keyboard shortcuts, the Project Explorer can be very handy, where you can have access to a lot of the parts of a Civil 3D drawing. It's kind of like a one-stop shop. The last tab is for object sets, and this is one that we're going to be using for either exporting drawings, creating reports, or creating tables. So I want to create a new object set name. I'm going to call it pipes in model space. And these are the different action sets that we have. We can export it or report it to a text file, a CSV file, an HTML file, send reports to a PDF, to a Microsoft Word document, to a rich text format, or directly to an XLS form. I can also export the objects as 2D AutoCAD drawing files, or I can create a table either in model space or in paper space. In this case, we're going to create a table in model space. My action type can either be dynamic, so it will automatically populate it, or I can select the individual objects that I want to go into the table or the report. I want to set that to dynamic. My layout style, I'm going to leave it as a default. And since this is a table, I need to give it my insertion point. If it were a text file, then I would have to give it the file name and the path for the export. So for the AutoCAD table, I'm going to pick my insertion point for my table and move it up here. There. For the title of my table, I can select any of these predefined parameters. We're going to leave it as object name. And the style for the table we'll leave as default for now and change it momentarily. I click OK. Now nothing happens because I haven't told it what objects to use yet. So I'm going to define my add or remove objects to my object set. Takes a while to open up. And here we have the various tabs that we had earlier. I'm going to click on Pipe Networks, and I want to select my storm. Click OK. So since this is a pipes report, our sub-object type needs to be set to our pipes list. I can tell it to use the object table and the sub-object table by double-click on either of these. So I can uncheck Use Object Table and just use the sub-objects. You notice that the pipes are displayed in the sub-object type. And if I look in the drawing and model space, we see the table with the pipes, not the object type, which is the storm sewers, but there are way too many columns, and we want to modify the layout a bit. So I go back to my object set name, pipes in model space, double click on that to edit, and our edit object set opens up where we can specify the layout style. I click on Edit Styles, and we go to the Pipe Network tab, and we want to set the columns for the pipes. And these are all the columns that are being displayed. As I did before, I can unclear them all and then just run down as to which ones I want to use. Pipe name, pipe style, start invert, end invert, slope, start structure, and end structure. And just like before, since this is in purple text, I can double click on that and simply rename the heading to style. I'm going to save this so I can use this layout later on. I'm just going to use the default name and overwrite it. And now for the table style, I can use a specific table style. I don't have any here yet, so I can edit my current table style. I don't want to use my background colors, and for my border color, I want to set that to red. And notice that because I'm using a white background, all the text color is currently set to white. So I obviously need to change that. And I'm just going to pick some random colors for the row text, for the header row text, and for the title row text. And I want to force them all to be in uppercase. Click OK. Once again, I'm prompted to save this. Before I clicked on the save icon, but this time I just went to OK, and I'm prompted to save that. And I'm going to overwrite it once again. In the future, I can simply click on these ellipses to browse out to whichever style I want to use. That's how we use them. And click OK. And now in model space, we see our pipes table with the renamed header for style, the various funky colors that I picked, and the table itself is in red. And back to PowerPoint. So we looked at the Project Explorer, we looked at the interface and the various components thereof. We went into Project Explorer and actually solved some of the issues we had for the storm sewers. One of the head walls was actually underground, and the other, we changed the slopes for a better runoff. And we looked at tables and reports within the Project Explorer. So there was I want to thank you for joining us for this webcast. There are a variety of ways of contacting us. You can reach us on the web at ascented.com, or you can go to our e-store at ascentestore.com. You can email us at courseware@ascented.com, or there's our 1-800 phone number. You can also reach us in LinkedIn. We have a Twitter account and a Facebook account, and we also have a YouTube account.